If you want to get into your story, the very first thing we want to start off with is literally just how everything got started. Like, what was your situation growing up and stuff like that?
Damn, this is taking me back to my AA days. Okay. So growing up, yeah, I was born in Texas, but I moved to Massachusetts, grew up and graduated, like went all through Belmont school systems. From an early age, I always had like shitty self-esteem. And when I was in 7th grade, I was actually diagnosed with ADHD, this is back in the 90s. So girls actually getting a diagnosis was not as common as it is now. So, I was fucking whacked out of my mind if I was actually getting a diagnosis that early.
You were on the struggle bus.
Yeah, the super struggle bus, always getting extra help. And the thing is, like, back then, you didn't know all the other shit that came with ADHD. You didn't know about the rejection sensitivity. You didn't know about all the feeling stuff and like all of the mental health stuff that goes with it. It was basically just presented to my family and I like a learning disability. And, I got my little IEP with some on-time testing, but all of these things about myself that I couldn't figure out why the fuck I was like, all of these things that I couldn't figure out. I didn't figure out what these things were until just a few years ago doing my own research online, because at one point, especially in my addiction, I was, misdiagnosed with BPD because just my ADHD mixed with some, addiction issues. That's how it was presenting, and because I just feel like ADHD is something that is so misunderstood and people just think it's just like, oh, you can't sit still. Oh, you can't pay attention. But there's so much other stuff that goes with it. And, I wish, and my mom even says like, she wished she realized all of that shit when I was younger,
Did you have trouble like making friends and stuff because you were so jittery?
So that was actually the only thing I was good at. The only thing that I was good at was being social. Like the only reason I went to school was to be social. I was always getting those, reports that said like, I talk too much in class and all that shit, because if I didn't have friends, like I don't even think I would have graduated high school,
Well, and see, that's the problem with my son, because he has ADHD really bad and he takes meds for it and everything, but he has a lot of struggles whenever it comes to like social situations. He just can't function properly in them. So his friend group is very, very small.
Yeah. I mean, I was always like the loud one, always like the, the person who I don't mean to, but I always like cut people off. Or if someone tells me a story, like I always relate it back to myself, and not like in a about me way, but it's just how I relate to people sometimes. It's like, oh, like that happened to me too. But I, now that I'm older, I realize that can be annoying sometimes when everything, you turn it back to yourself. I'm like, okay, that's obnoxious. So my first like experience with like drugs and alcohol was 7th grade summer going into 8th grade. And everyone was like hanging out by the town pool, and my mom would let me stay there because my mom was super strict. Okay. My mom's like a church every Sunday kind of lady, like super religious, super like don't have sex before you're married, like super unrealistic view of the world. And like, even with me using, like she thought if I just loved her enough that I wouldn't use drugs, like that's how she, perceived things. But yeah, 7th grade summer going to 8th grade, started drinking, smoking weed, and I fucking loved it. Like I loved it. I loved the way it made me feel. Like I loved being fucked up. And it was finally something I was good at. I had friends that were good at soccer. I had friends that were good at school. I had friends that were good at playing instruments, and I sucked at everything. I tried everything growing up. I tried the piano, the clarinet, the dance lessons, the karate, I tried everything. My parents put me in everything, and I would never make it past like one whole like sign up, whatever the sign up is. They would never re-enroll me because I never wanted to stick with it because I sucked at it, and I never wanted to practice to get good. I just wanted to be good. And if I wasn't good, then I felt like shit about it, and then I would just move on to the next thing. So drugs and alcohol was something that like I could drink more than my friends. I could smoke more weed than so it was finally something that I was good at, as silly as it sounds, And I would say like all through high school, I'd kind of be considered like a stoner, I guess, kind of still am. But, just partying a lot, like typical shit though. Was I always like the drunkest one, usually, you know, but like everyone around me was getting fucked up too. I mean, it's small town Massachusetts. I mean, I think everything, high school, everyone, it's just a rite of passage. Yep. By senior year, so this is when the shit starts getting good. My senior year is when I got introduced to OCs. Okay. And my life like got flipped upside down in a positive way. I could sniff one of those motherfuckers and do my homework. I could sniff one of those motherfuckers and all of a sudden I'm an A and B student doing drugs. Like that doesn't even sound like it goes together. It's usually, I was a C, D, F student, had to go to summer school to pass to most grades. Like all of a sudden I'm doing really well. And it came at perfect timing because, you know, all of my friends were going to college, getting into college. And like, I hadn't even thought about that shit. I'm like, am I even going to graduate this year? You know? So I was able to write my little college essays on how I saw the like high as hell, writing my college, you know, essays to try to get in. Writing about how like, you know, I saw the light and like, you know, education's important to me and stuff. And I ended up getting into like 5 out of the 7 places I applied to, even with like a 2-point-something GPA because it got so much better the first 3 terms. So that summer is when I started using like almost every day, you know, like, but still not a negative effect, like was not a negative thing in my life. It was expensive. You know, like it took up a lot of money, but it wasn't like, it was a good thing for me at first, you know, like it made me, and especially because my mom was like a human fucking breathalyzer. When she would answer the door, when I would like come home,
the kiss and sniff.
She always pretend to give me a kiss and a hug.
I know that.
You know?
My mom was the same way.
Oh, so crazy. So guess what? I come home ripped out of my mind. She can't smell shit.
Right.
And I'm like, this is fucking awesome. You know, it was like, it was perfect in every way. And then it wasn't until I'd say my junior year of college when it was like, all right, now I'm not going to class if I can't get high first. You know, like now the drugs are really coming before everything. Yeah.
How were you maintaining while you were a college student? Because I know what the prices of OCs were. They big money. So like, how did you get the money?
So I had a job. My parents, like they gave me a pretty decent, like, I guess an allowance you would call it. I could come up with, at that time, my parents, like, I was in college, okay? I could do no wrong. And, like, getting me to college, well, that was, like, because, like, they didn't go to college. My dad didn't go back to school till he was, like, 50-something, you know? So, me going to college, like, that's all I had to fucking do, you know? Like, that's it. Like, I just had to go to school, and my parents would pay for everything, do everything, because they just wanted me to get that damn piece of paper, which sucks, because I never fucking got it. But, so my junior year, I get like academic probation because like I failed a couple classes. I should have just withdrew. Like that would have been the smart thing to do. But you know, when you're using, you just run away from everything. I'll deal with it tomorrow. 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 And then tomorrow comes, you're like, fuck, you know,
not today.
Yeah. I don't know what we're going to do. So,
yeah,
So I start first semester of senior year on academic probation and I just stopped fucking going to school. Like I just stopped. So all through that time, I was like dating this kid. And then my senior year of college is when I broke up with him. And that's when I started dating my now husband. And we met because I was really good friends with one of his little brothers because he's one of 12. So I was good friends with one of his brothers and with one of his sisters. So, you know, he was using, so, you know, you're kind of in the mix. Sometimes, you know, you go through someone who they know, you know, all that stupid shit.
All the ins and outs.
Yeah, he asked me out. We were waiting in a parking lot waiting for the same Oxy guy. You know, he saw me pull in. He was sitting there and I was like, oh, hey, he got out. And he's like, you know, where's your boyfriend? I'm like, oh, we broke up, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you know, can I call you sometime? And the rest is fucking history. But
there you go. And then you're robbing banks together.
Most romantic story ever,
you know?
right?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, thankfully the plug was late that day, right? The only time it was a good thing. But yeah, so senior year, like stopped going. And then I got kicked out of school. Obviously, my parents are fucking like pissed. And this is when they find out that I'm using. So I remember my husband and I had just bought a 10-pack of needles at CVS. We're sitting in, because by now I've switched to dope. I kind of missed that whole transition.
Yeah.
You know how it goes.
We get that.
Same shit. It gets more expensive and you switch. So then my parents called and there was money missing that I fucking stole. And I'm like denying it. And my husband's actually like, he's like, cause we were kind of at a place where like we didn't want, and he even said to me, he's like, if we start getting high together, it's going to be the only thing we ever do together. He's like, he's like, I actually like you. Like I want, and like, he's 13 years older than me too. He's like, I actually like you. Like I want to, not have that become. So I'm like, all right, like, I guess I'm going to fucking tell them. And at that point, he was on Suboxone. So like what he was kind of doing was taking his medicine the way he's supposed to. But then the last couple weeks, he was, dabbling. And then that kind of changed once we started seeing each other, because then he's starting to use a lot more. And so we were trying to like not totally go that way. And so I told my parents, like, they were upset, but kind of like, okay, like now, like, let's do something about this. So I went to McLean's, I went to detox there. I got on Suboxone after there, and I still wanted to get high. My husband still wanted to get high. And then we kind of, cause at that time, my parents didn't know what the fuck to do. So like they were letting what was he, 34 years old at the time? My 34-year-old boyfriend sleep at their house with their 21-year-old daughter, because they just didn't know what the fuck to do with me,
Right.
It's like did not know what to do with me. So they're like, well, it seems like he's kind of keeping her kind of chill, so we'll just. And so one day my husband and I, we were like, we didn't know what we were just like, how you are, just all fucked up. And so we decide that we are going to move. We're going to like just get out of here because we can't stay sober here. Yeah.
Isn't it crazy how you have all these grandiose ideas like, oh, come on, babe, today we're going to do this and we're going here. And we'll travel here with no money because you got to get yourself off of E all the time. I understand.
It's crazy. And the thing is that like at that time, it was like, remember mobile speed passes? It was like the little wand thing that you could like wave at the mobile thing. So I was on my parents' account for that. Once I found out that you could also buy cigarettes and fucking food on that thing.
Oh shit.
Yep.
Fucking my poor dad, man. That's all I think about my poor parents. But so we ended up loading up. We bought a bunch of gas cards because I'm like, my dad's gonna fucking cancel this shit,
Right.
So we bought as many gas cards as we could, a bunch of smokes, some snacks and shit, and we took off to South Carolina because that made fucking sense for some reason.
I've been there.
Yeah, so we were there, and he did have an uncle there, but like an uncle that he didn't even really talk to, and we like
it's always these great ideas at first.
When we show up, and he's kind of like, and I'm 38, but I kind of do like look younger, and especially then I looked like a lot younger. So his uncle like took him aside. He's like, "How old is that girl?" You know what I mean? He's like, "She looks so fucking young."
That's jailbait right there, right?
Yeah, exactly. He's like, "What the fuck is going on?" But so we were there for a couple of days, and then his sister actually passed away, and we got the call that she had overdosed. So we ended up. His mom was like, "Please, like, come back for the shit," So we're like, all right, so we'll go back. We're like, well, we'll be able to get high when we're there. So it wasn't like the worst idea. So
that didn't scare you at all whenever you found that out she OD'd?
No.
Yeah. When you're on a bender like that, you're like, oh, it happened to them, but it'll never happen to me.
Are you a drunk? What did you not do opiates?
Oh, I did.
Oh, you did?
I did everything. I just had a couple of times, like that first time one of my friends ended up ODing. I had that like split second thought that like, I don't want this to happen to me. But the next time I went through withdrawal, it was back to it.
I was just always like, it will never be me. Like, I just always just had that, like, it will never be me. Like, it will never be me. And even when I tried for it to be me, it still didn't work. So that gave me even more of a, like, I just can't even kill myself, Right. So like, I wasn't afraid. Yeah, so we went. There was like drama at the shit and all this stupid shit. And then we ended up meeting my parents for dinner. And we told them the plan that like, cause what ended up happening those couple days we were there, like my husband ended up getting a job. I found like a job making like $7 an hour at a preschool. I don't know how we thought we were going to survive off of that shit. And like, he got a job making like $12 an hour somewhere, you know, we weren't doing great by any means. And we told my parents about, and my parents, like, they were like, all right, because they didn't know what to do anymore. You know, they're like, so maybe being out of the state will be good for her. You know, like my parents just wanted me to be okay at that point. And so, you know, we go there, we're there for a few months. Now I did mention how my husband's 13 years older. So we were there for a few months. And then that summer we were getting his 3 kids for the summer in our small ass 1-bedroom apartment. So we had him for the summer. I played mom for the whole summer, you know, great. But then when we got back, dropped the kids back off in Massachusetts, we read up, you know, we got some shit. We actually just got oxys. It wasn't dope. We finished them before we even got back to South Carolina. It was supposed to be like, this will last us a while type thing.
Right. Never does.
And then it was like, we were fucking off and running. We were literally from Bluffton, South Carolina. This lasted like a month. Every weekend, driving there on Friday night back to Massachusetts to get our oxys, then driving
that's like a 12 and a half hour ride, right?
Yeah.
12 and a half hours?
Yeah.
Oh my God, girl, what?
Yeah. And obviously the next time rent came around, we didn't have money for that shit.
Right.
So I called my dad, fucking daddy-o, always bailing me out. Well, at that time, then he stopped. But I was like, well, you know, I don't even know what the fuck I said. Don't even know what story I made up, to be honest with you. And he got me a moving truck. His brother, I don't even know how Rich ended up in South Carolina. But his brother, anyways, helped us pack. We packed up the truck. My dad got me a storage unit. We put all the shit in the storage unit. And then his mom got us like a hotel for a couple weeks. And then we were living out of a Toyota Echo. Do you know what a Toyota Echo is? Have you ever seen an Echo?
Car. Yeah.
We were living out of one of those. Yeah.
Wow.
So we did that for a short time. And then I was like, I can't do this anymore. It was cold. It was like January-ish time. And we're back to treatment. And that's really when like just the whole treatment in and out cycle started, you know. Then from that treatment, I went to New Hampshire. Then my parents sent me to Texas because now at that point, they hate my husband. Now they're like...
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, did he go to treatment at first with you? Like,
no.
Did you guys ever do that? Okay, you were separated.
No. I think he's been to treatment like once. I don't think he's ever he's been to like detox. He's never even been to like real treatment. Moved me to Texas in a sober living house after I finished that. And this is where the whole bank robbery thing starts, because now, you know, and you know how when you're using, how, I don't know if you ever were like this, but like when you're in relationships, like everything is like so dark and so romantic and like just so like, you know, that like,
I can attest to that. Yeah. Like Bonnie and Clyde. It's like Bonnie and Clyde. You guys,
like us against the world, like,
been there.
So, you know, we're still talking on the phone. I'm in this sober house and, you know, he's still ripping and running. And some fucking how, I think his mom got him a one-way ticket to Texas. I don't know what the fuck he told her to get that fucking ticket. And I thought he had like a round trip ticket. Like I didn't really know what the fuck was going on. So we want to see each other, you know. So he gets off I meet him at the airport, right? And I knew, because he had told me that he wasn't using, but like I should have fucking known, you know. But the second I saw him, I'm like, this motherfucker. Like he weighed less than what he was like skeletal.
You could tell immediately.
Yeah.
You could tell you saw the change.
Yeah, I was like, he has a little Newberry Comics bag. That's it. Because he had gotten me some stuff, because I wanted like some Boston stuff from my car, you know, because I was in Texas. So I wanted to like represent, you know, early 20s bullshit.
Got you. Yep.
And so the first thing I'm like, well, did you fucking bring me anything? You know?
Right.
And, like, of course he didn't. He did it all. And then that night we ended up getting drunk, because at the sober living, I could have a pass for the weekend. Like I had earned, you know, I'd been there 90 days. I had earned a pass out. So we were staying at a hotel for the weekend. You know, I had my little job, you know, so And so ended up getting drunk that night. Like, we're not even, like, we don't really drink together. It's not like really our thing. And we will once in a while. Like, we haven't in years now, but that's not what we like to do together. You know, it was just, that's what we had. So then we're like,
because you couldn't get what you needed. So you wanted to substitute for something else.
Exactly. And it sucked. It fucking sucked.
Right.
So then we wake up and we're like, all right, like, let's go into Dallas. Like, Dallas is totally different than the way Boston is. Like, Dallas, like, the city part is like shut down during the weekend, you know, like you have to go to like, you have to like know where to go. And like, we couldn't find shit. We didn't know where to go. We didn't, you know, so now we're just like in this like jonesing. He's physically dope sick, you know, I'm like out of my mind jonesing. Like, you know how when you just want to get high so fucking bad, you like slit somebody's throat for it. Like,
right. That's all that you could focus on.
Like, and then we didn't, by this time, you know, I only had a little job. We stayed, you know, we had the hotel room. Like, I didn't have a lot of money. And so I don't even, honestly, I don't know how the whole conversation went. Like, I don't know how it started. I remember pulling over. I remember him going into a bank. I remember him coming out of the bank. I remember him sticking his hand down his pants and pulling out a wad of money. And I remember like thinking like, you know, movies, like I'm waiting for a helicopter, I'm waiting for sirens, like I'm waiting for like something like fucked up to happen, and like nothing happens. We drove back to the sober living house, like I got a couple things.
Wow.
And then we drove from fucking Texas to Massachusetts. Like it was just, we literally just stopped to pee and refuel. Like we fucking got there, got our shit, got a hotel room, got high, and then ran out of money. And then we robbed 3 more banks. You know, it was just like,
Did the money ever have any of those markers or dye? I've always wondered that. No.
He literally would go in. He would literally just go in and get a deposit slip thing. Right on the back of the deposit slip, I forget what it was, exactly what he wrote. You know, he wrote no dye packs. Not that matters. It's not like they're gonna be, oh, he said no dye packs, so I'm not.
Yeah, right. You get what you get.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. You do get what you get. Okay. There was one bank, we literally got less than $1,000 fucking dollars.
Wow.
Okay. We literally got less than $1,000 at one. And then the most we got was like it was like 5,000 and something, or like 5,000 exact. It was like right around $5,000. I can't remember the exact number.
It doesn't matter how much you get though, because that little bit will get you high one more time, so you can keep on going. So
and that's the thing. The more it didn't matter, and this is over 8 days from the time that we robbed the first bank to the time that we got arrested was 8 fucking days. And I've always thought it was longer, but like, you know how when, you know, especially when I was like in my early 20s and like telling my story and stuff, I embellished it, you know, like I made it sound like a lot better than it was, rather than like, because this is the thing too that I didn't mention, is that my husband and I, we got to that point because yes, we wanted to get high, but we also knew my parents were never going to be okay with us being together, or so we thought, right? We were just in this dark cloud and we just wanted to die. Like the plan was to die. The plan was to just get high and die and just like have these last like whatever moments together, just having as much drugs and, you know, drug fueled sex and all that shit until we died. Like that was the fucking plan. The plan was not to get arrested. The plan was to be dead before that happened. And, you know, it's so crazy how little you value your life when you're using. Like you always want to die. You always want to, and now I'm like so scared to die. But during that time, like I just wanted to fucking die, you know, and he did.
You had
too.
A case of the fuck it. It sounds like you had a complete case of like the I don't care. I just don't care. Yeah.
It was like my life was never going to be like what I thought it could, you know what I mean? Like I was just like, I had just ruined college, you know what I mean? Like all this shit now I'm in. So anyways, that Friday we ended up buying a gun off of our dealer. And then that Saturday we were supposed to meet him at the Galleria Mall. And my husband's fucking like, we're waiting, right? But you fucking wait, and we're waiting and like, it's taking, you know, some time. And then like my husband's like, something's not fucking right. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, something's not right. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, he's supposed to be on his motorcycle and he's saying that he's on his way, but like, how are you on the phone on your motorcycle? I'm like, wait, no, fucking plugs lie, you know what? I'm like, do you want to leave? Like, do you want to go? He's like, no. He's like, I'm probably just being paranoid. he was not being paranoid.
Uh-oh.
And it all really happened so fast. You know, he decided he was going to go like meet me from outside, and I was going to get the car from inside and just meet him out there, just, you know, just to play it safe. Cause our dude called and said like, hey, I'm here, you know, come meet me wherever. So we go to the car, and all of a sudden all these people are like just screaming at me, right? Like I just remember hearing like, stop, Ray, blah, blah, blah. And like, I don't really even like, no dots are not being connected yet. That like, I'm like, are the, and like a lot of plainclothes people with like guns drawn. And I'm like, are these like, is this like a gang? Like what is going on? Do they know we have some money? Like what? And then I saw like one regular, you know, and then I was like, oh fuck, like this is the fucking cops, you know, they'll throw you down to the ground, all that shit. And then I remember seeing my husband start to walk down, and it just fucking, I'll never forget the feeling of just watching a bunch of them just run, grab him, slam him to the ground. And I was just like, this is fucking it. You know,
it probably felt like slow motion to you.
Yeah. Because I was like, I saw, and it's like, there's nothing I can do to like, you know, you want to be like, fucking go. But even if I, like, I couldn't even fucking say anything. And even if I did, they're right there, like they're gunning it. And it was just, it was fucking horrible.
Just because you did want to die and everything was going on, when that happened, did you like get pissed off at yourself because you didn't do it, you know, before you got caught?
Oh yeah, like, you know, everything's going through your mind, you know, you're like, fucking, I knew we should have fucking loaded more, and you know what I mean? Like just all like stupid shit. And then it's like, I'd never been arrested in my life, you know, like my husband did his first bid at 16 and a half. So like, this is old fucking news to him. Me, I had never fucking been arrested in my life. So this was like my first interaction with the fucking police. And it's like
traumatic departments. Yeah, very traumatic.
Robbery task force, like all of like super traumatic. And so I remember
how did
like
they catch up to you though? Like how did somebody like were you tipped off?
So our dealer told on us. So I'm pretty sure.
How did your dealer know? Did you guys tell your dealer?
He ended up fucking no, like I don't know if we told him exactly, but we must have, because we were meeting him so much. Also, we have so much money. Like we used to be junk boxes. We were fucking coming $10 short all the time. Like all of a sudden now we're buying fucking 30 packs. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And stupid on our fucking part. Like, but you know, we thought we'd be dead or fucking gone before we didn't think, you know? And I think what happened with him is that maybe he got nervous because he sold us that gun the night before. So it was either the gun was part of the plan with the cops, or he got nervous from giving us the gun, maybe thought we were about to use it on, you know what I mean? Like to rob him, you know, I don't really fucking know. But, yeah, that's how they found out. So I ended up getting bail. He never got bail. Like he got taken that day, and then it was 9.5 years later he got out. And I remember my mom coming, like my parents come, and I remember the cop, they're like, I'm like, I don't fucking want to call my parents. Like, do not call my parents. Like, don't want to call my parents. And like one of the
old school office days, you got a detention.
Yeah, like, no. I'll stay here. Like, let me chill. Like, and one of the cops was a Belmont cop, because one of the fucking banks we robbed was in the town that I grew up in. And she was like, you know, she was a Belmont High graduate from like a couple years ahead. And she was like, you know, so she ended up fucking calling my parents. And so my parents came straight to detox, you know, like that's always how it was. Anytime, once like my parents knew like I was using back in, at this time, it was anytime I saw them, it was straight to detox, you know, detox. So I went to detox, went to another program, and then went to another program, and then went to sober living. I was out on bail for 2 years. So that's basically what it would be a cycle of, is just, you know, going to programs.
Did you have suspended time hanging over your head? Like if you,
so I was just out on bail I was just out on bail waiting to go and like have my trial, right? Because it was at 18, at that point, everything had gotten dropped and I just had the firearm charge, right? But in Massachusetts, that's a mandatory 18 months. Like you can't do less than 18 months if you're found guilty for that. So I was like, well, if there's no plea on that, you know, if I plea, I'm going to fucking, so I might as well, you know. So I fight it for 2 years. So that's hanging over my head the whole time, this 18 months.
Right.
So like not staying fucking sober to save my life. You know, I would have these short times in these places. You know, my parents are going nuts. Like my relationship between my mom and I at this time is fucking trash.
I'm sure.
Complete trash. My poor dad, like just brokenhearted, like just fucking terrible. And then I have my first trial, right? Fucking mistrial, bro. They couldn't all like come and have. So now my dad's feeling good, right? I'm fucking like, yeah, I'm gonna smoke these motherfuckers, all this shit.
Right.
So then there was like this other shit that I was involved in that I never got formally charged with, but they were, because the judge was like, this girl has no record. Like, you guys can't work anything out, you know? And they're like, well, we'd love to, but it's coming from like, it was Leone was like the head DA at that time. And they're like, it's coming from him. And also she's like a person of interest in this other shit and like blah, blah, blah. So they wouldn't work anything out. So I went back for my next trial. It was like a month and a half later, I feel like. It was definitely less than 2 months. And I mean, bro, it felt like they were out. Like when the jury goes away, it felt like they were gone for fucking 5 minutes. It felt like they were not gone long at all.
Like their mind was already made up.
Yeah.
Yep. Didn't give you a chance.
Yeah. And so they come back and they say guilty. And like, I don't have to go back for sentencing because it's I wasn't getting any more time than the mandatory time. So they come up, they cuff me. I remember looking back, my parents, like seeing my dad cry. Oh, fucking terrible, terrible. And they take me and I'm down in the holding until the fucking paddy wagon came to pick me up.
Were you caught off guard? Did you expect to leave there and get high that day?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I thought that, my dad thought that because the mistrial gave us a whole lot of false hope. You know, that mistrial really made us think, all right, like, but the other thing is on this new trial, like they said things, because technically they weren't supposed to bring up the bank robbery stuff because I wasn't being charged for the banks. Yep. But when the cops say it and they say fucking whatever the fuck they say to like have they've heard that now. You know, like now they've heard that there were these 4 bank robberies, that you're with this guy and like all this shit. So they can't just like pretend that they didn't hear, even though they're not supposed to, because to me, that's the major difference between the first trial and the second trial. Because the first trial, they were out for like hours and they couldn't all agree. The second one, I mean, it might have been shorter. I was on benzos that day, but I swear it was like 5 minutes and then they came back. You know, and yeah, I was so shell shocked and so sick, dude.
Were you scared because of how sick you were? Were you just like, I'm going to have to go through this and stay this way now?
Like at first, going in, like once you get picked up, so then, okay, you get picked up on the paddy wagon, right? Yep. And I don't wear heels. Like this is how I dress, okay? My mom had me in this fucking suit, these fucking heels. Try getting up on a paddy wagon when you're fucking shackled here, your feet are shackled, and you got these long ass fucking heels. Anyway, so I got on the thing, and then they go to like all the jails to pick up everybody, and there's like this middle thing that separates you, and there's guys on the other thing.
And the men, I remember that paddy wagon.
Sitting there all like, you know, the girls are doing all, you know, trying to show. I'm like, no one can see your tits through that thing. I don't know who you think you're showing. You know, they're saying things, you know, tell Danny I love him, fucking blah blah. You know, all these people, all these chicks, like either seem to know each other or this is not their first time. And I'm like, where am I? You know, like little Belmont girl thought she was rough and tough until it was time to go to MCI Framingham, let me tell you.
I had the same exact experience on that paddy wagon where it feels like your life is flashing before you and you almost feel like, damn, I don't belong with these people. That's how I felt. I felt above them. I'm like, I don't even belong here. But guess what? I was worse than half of them. Yeah.
So I get in there. The first night I spent at HSU. It's like the hospital. I feel like everyone spends their first night at HSU. I don't really know though. And we woke up. They're like, okay, like who's ready to get on the compound? I'm like, I don't even know what these people are saying. Like, what is
right? All the jail lingo. Yeah. You don't know any of it.
I'm like, I guess I am, you know, like everyone else is. No one wanted to stay there. I kind of wanted to stay there because I'm like, all right, this seems chill, you know, like I'll stay here. But it seemed like, all right, well, no one wants to stay here. So I guess I don't want to stay here either. So then like my first couple of nights they put me in Brewster. I don't remember if it was Brewster 1 or Brewster 2, but then they're like, you can't stay here because this is for a year or less. You have to like go out into like, you know, the regular compound. So then, you know, after a couple days, you know, you start to get comfortable, you start to, and then they like move me again. I'm like, what the fuck, you know? So then they move me and I have your stereotypical like 300 pounds, like gigantic, like I'm not trying to be like rude or disrespectful.
No,
but,
I
like,
understand.
really large, really mean, tough looking chick. Okay. She ended
Somebody
up
that
being
scares you.
so sweet, bro. She ended up being so sweet. But you know how, and this is like something that I'll always like remember, is that she had this bowl of food, right? Because you know how you make the rice and like all that shit. And like I remember I saw it like, you know, when I first was moving my stuff in. And then like the next day the rice is still there. Like I'm full-fledged, like I'm real sick, you know?
Yeah.
And she was trying to take it, and she was trying to feed me this fucking old rice, bro.
Oh
And,
my
like,
God.
later in life, like later in jail, like I realized like, you know, you can't, cause like I'm so weird about food and like food-borne illnesses and shit. Like I drive my husband crazy. Like I'll always throw shit away. So for like me, this was just like so horrifying, you know, and she's trying to get me to eat this unrefrigerated old ass food. And I'm like, freaking out. And I'm like, no, like I don't think it'll stay in me. Like I'm good, you know, but it was just such a culture shock. But it was cool because she worked in laundry. So she like exchanged, I had like a bunch of dingy state stuff. And because, you know, it takes months before you can get property on there. Like it's not like the men's where you can get it right away. Like it takes like 3 months, I think, to get your shit when you first get on there. And so she got me like some fresh, she ended up being cool. Her girlfriend ended up beating her ass. So she ended up getting lugged, you know, and that was horrifying. Like anytime like there was some sort of like change when I was like finally like, okay, I can do this. It was like every single time like something drastic would change, you know?
Right.
So then there was like the thing called across the street, which is minimum security. So, you know, I went across the street. I spent 6 months at like regular MCI Framingham. And then I spent my last year in minimum. I couldn't get a job because you can't get a pre-release job when you have a mandatory sentence. So that was that. Then I got out. I think I stayed sober for probably a month. And then I started using again.
Did you contact your husband right away? Like
No. Oh my God. I know. I left out so much. It's so hard. So
no, it's okay.
Yeah. So my first year on bail, we stayed in contact, right?
Okay.
But then once I started moving like a bunch, you know, going in and out of places, I lost contact with him and we just stopped talking. We stopped talking for years and years.
Okay.
It's for so many years. I ended up getting engaged to someone else. And then I had to call that wedding off before he got out.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. But he, okay, so yeah, so then I get out, and then it's just back to the same shit, you know?
Right.
And in and out of programs. My parents ended up moving back to Texas. You know, I'm still in and out of programs here. Then I ended up going to Texas. And then I was doing programs there for a couple times, but then I would like run back to Massachusetts. You know, like my parents had just bought me a new car, and I got that car and I drove it back to Massachusetts to get high. Then my dad ended up like, he was in business at that time in New Hampshire. And like, I decided I wanted to, you know, get sober again. So he drove back with me from Massachusetts to Texas in that car. Then maybe a month later, I ended up driving that car, leaving it at the airport, telling my parents, like after I was, you know, long gone, that where they could find the car at the airport. Like I was just always, like it was always these like super sudden, like all of a sudden, you know what I mean? I would be chairing meetings.
Out of nowhere.
And then the next night I'm booking a ticket, you know, or I'm hopping in my car and I'm out. Like it was just always like, just boom, boom,
Spur of
boom.
the moment.
Yep.
Spur of the moment.
There was no thinking it through. It was just always like, boom, I'm gone. You know, boom, I'm out. And then by the end.
At first, whenever it came to like trusting you, did they at least kind of think that you were reformed once you got out, or was it very rocky?
Because we had some great conversations, because my parents, they missed like 3 weekends out of the whole 18 months. They didn't see me for 3 weekends. And So we had great conversation, and I really thought I was going to do well, but I shouldn't say that though, because I was saving some of my canteen money so that when I got out, that I would at least, I had like $600 when I got out. You know, when you're,
so you already had that mental, so you already had that mental relapse in
I
jail.
guess,
You already, you had those reservations. Well, you know,
fine,
I
I
mean,
guess I did. Yeah, I did. If I'm, yeah, if
all
I'm
right.
being, I always say I didn't, but I mean, you don't hoard money if you don't, right?
Right.
Or I was hoarding
It's that,
it for
it's that
that.
way of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Marie, call me out on my shit.
It's all good. But you know what? You did, so you got out, you were out for like a month and you were back at the same thing. Like, it's so easy to go right backwards. It's like no time went by, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know, I always like, it was always until I would lose a job and then I would just go like balls to the wall. You know, that was like, if I could keep my job, but then, you know, I start calling in sick or I start, you know, having to be late because, you know, my dude hasn't picked up yet, like different shit like that. But it was always right after I would lose a job where it would just be like fucking off to the races, you know?
Right.
And then like, in certain, I mean, I'm missing a whole bunch of shit, like, you know, some sober livings, like buying pee. Because before I would just take off, right? I would just take off, say, fuck all this, and I would take off. But by the end, towards the end, I don't want to fucking take off anymore. Like, I'm tired of taking
You
off.
got sick of running.
Yeah.
You probably got sick of running.
Yeah, I did. But like, I didn't know how to like stop using. So now I'm just buying people's pee and shit. But like, I didn't want to get kicked out of the sober living. Like, I wanted to keep trying this program. I wanted to keep trying, you know, because now I'm super indoctrinated. I think that the rooms is the only way to get sober, that anything else. But like, I suck at it.
Did you ever leave the area that you were at in Massachusetts and go to different areas of sober living, like Western Mass or like different areas?
My parents would like usually ship me out of the state. So like, I did a few in Texas, a few in Vermont, New Hampshire. I never did any sober living in Massachusetts. I did a few like rehabs in Massachusetts, but my parents did not want me in a sober living in this state. They just thought that
they thought it would be too easy for you, probably.
Yeah. They didn't know.
I could see that.
Book a flight.
Right. Hey, shit.
Yeah. And like, this is still where like, you know, there were parts where, you know, like there were parts in my husband and I's using where like it got to where my parents completely cut me off and I had nothing and there was no outside help. But my parents were the type of parents that like, if I started, you know, going back to treatment and all that stuff, like they would start to help. But each time it would get less and less and less. You know, like the first time I'm getting like a new wardrobe to go to rehab and like, you know, cartons of smokes. By the end, I'm getting lucky if I'm getting a pack of cigarettes, you know, like it got less and less and less. And they started to believe in me less and less and less to the point, like by the end, you know, I'm going to the last treatment place I went to, you know, nobody had any hopes of anything, you know, other than like, at least this is going to keep her alive for a little bit longer, you know, because she's not going to be using during this time. And it was just a whole lot of just in and out, back and forth, you know, like my parents to this day, they're in their 70s and they can't retire because they spent all that money on treatment, on sober livings and like all this shit, like all of their retirement spent on my fucking ass, you know, and they were brainwashed by the industry to let her home is to kill her. That's why my parents never wanted me to go back to the house or like anything like that, because they were told that was going to kill me, you know, until finally this very last place I went to in Texas, they were living in Texas at this time. The guy was like, why don't you try? Cause like I hadn't been able to be home in like 10 years, you know, he's like, why don't you see if, you know, try it. You've tried all this because they were getting ready to
try something different. Try something that you've never tried before.
Right. Exactly.
Angle.
And it ended up, that was the last time I was in treatment. I'm not going to say it was the last time I used, but it was the last time that I had super chaotic relapses to where, you know, then my last several relapses were just a couple of days where I didn't really lose anything, you know, or like when my husband came home and we were using on the weekends, like we didn't lose anything. We didn't have to start back from zero. He was about to get sent back to prison and we were like, all right, like, let's fucking stop. And we did, you know, but it took many, many, many years. That's why I always say my rock bottom was years before my last weeks, like years. And it just finally got to the point where the drugs didn't work anymore. It wasn't worth losing like I started to finally build stuff. When you just keep starting over at sober living, like when you can put everything in a backpack, you don't feel like you're losing much.
There gets to be a point where it's like, well, I have nothing more to lose anyway. Like you're
Yeah.
either on one side or the other side.
Do you think you never tried like subs again or anything like that just because it failed at first? So like the rooms were the only way? Or
Yeah, by that point I thought that subs was still using. So if I wanted to get high, I would just use dope. You know, that's the way I looked at medication. That's the way I looked at cannabis. You know, that's why I looked at everything until it got to the point where I didn't give a fuck about recovery anymore. I'm like, I don't care about recovery. Like I was little miss fucking recovery, you know? And like recovery, especially when you go to treatment centers that have like sober livings, that like a lot of people from the treatment center go to those sober livings. And then when you go to like other states where a lot of those people from those sober livings end up getting apartments, and then, you know, they're like building whole ass sober communities that stem from a treatment center. It's a different type of vibe and a different type of like high school vibe in the rooms.
Right.
Like
I agree.
It's so different. And it's very like, you don't want to let people know you're suffering because you want to fucking be dropping those spiritual bombs at the meeting. Like you want to sound like you're spiritually, you know what I mean? Like it's the cool thing to do, to have a bunch of commitments, to have a bunch of sponsees. Like it becomes, or at least it did for me. And I feel like a lot of young people, like early 20s sober people, especially those of us who miss out from like the real college experience, you know, because my first year I did live on campus, but the last years I lived off campus so I could get high easier. And it was just one of those things that a lot of people it's just if you've been in these type of communities, like you get it. And that really fucked me up. That fucked me up because it was just like spiritual abuse from like all angles, you know, like so many people involved in your business, so many people knowing all your shit. So it's supposed to be accountability, but it's really just, it's fucking stupid, you know?
When did you have that shift of like, okay, how many years before like you were like Miss AA and in the rooms before that shift? And you're like, wait, something might be off here.
When the last 4 years before my husband came home, I was living in Dallas. And this is when I got engaged to this other dude. And I was like, I was in Dallas and I was drinking a lot. You know, I was drinking a lot, and like I had a lot of sober friends in Dallas still because I had like, you know, done treatment and stuff. And I remember like drinking and like not putting anything on Facebook. And I always tell people like, don't tag me, like all this shit. It was very like hush hush. Because everyone that I was drinking with, like, they were like professionals and like, you know, like hygienists and like, you know, like real people with real jobs, not, you know, like not, I'm used to people working like their little sober Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks.
Right.
You know, like,
yeah.
I'm like, these are real people. Like they bought houses and condos and like, so like, I'm like, okay, like this shit is fucking cool. Like this is what people do that don't do drugs. They drink all the time. Like I can do this, you know? And then I remember my friend, and so I'm hiding it from her. And this is like my best sober friend. She had ended up going to Hawaii and she called me and she was fucking heartbroken, bro. Like you would have thought like somebody like that her mom died or something crazy, like the way she was crying. She ended up drinking when she was in Hawaii and she was fucking devastated. I'm like, all right, dude, I'm about to tell you something. I'm like, I've been drinking, like it was a whole year. I'm like, I've been drinking for this whole past year. Okay, because like she was Miss Little AA too. She was convinced that she's ready to fucking start. And I'm like, bro, like it's not really like that for everybody, you know? Like, you know, I used to take off all the time because she was in the sober house that I took off from 3 times back to Massachusetts. She was like I lived with her at that house. I'm like, you know me, dude. I'm like, I've been drinking for a fucking year and like nothing bad's happened to me, you know, except for some fucking hangovers, you know, like, and that was when I really realized, like, we're so fucked up. Like, we can't even be real with people. Like, we don't even know who the fuck we are. But I didn't, like, I just kind of buried it, kept drinking, and then it wasn't until when my husband got out, and, like, that's a whole long story, too. But when his probation officer was like, you know, you got to start going to meetings, like, all this shit, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I can't fucking go back there, bro. I'm like, I'll go with you, like, to go with you to, like, support you. But luckily we didn't end up having to go. I think we were supposed to. But then, like, COVID came at the end of his probation and shit. And it was like, probation was mad easy after that.
And a lot of times they just, because of the anonymity, anybody could sign that paper. It's like, because of anonymity.
Right.
They can't call and be like, was he really at the meeting? So
Did you ever start falling into the faith side of things? Did that ever do anything for you? Or was it just like the idea of AA?
Yeah, so when I was in Texas, because it's like a lot more like religious people down there, a lot more big mega churches and like all that stuff. I did get with some girls that were into, you know, celebrate recovery and shit, but I was like, this was definitely, because I was a fucking altar girl. Like I was like, you know, I went to CCD, made my confirmation, like all of that shit, you know, like I was like little Miss Catholic girl too, because of my mom. My mom was a CCD teacher, like, so religion was always shoved down my throat from a very young age. And it was always a punishing God. Like my mom, if I would stub my toe, see, that's God punishing you. Like it was always, you know, God was always a very punishing God in my eyes. So when I got to 12-step and I realized I could do a God of my understanding and he could be a loving God, I was like, all right, I'll fucking pick a loving God, you know? And it did, because to be honest with you, I'm agnostic now. But when I tell you I want to be spiritual, I want to believe so fucking bad because like, I have to pretend that I believe to have a relationship with my mom, you know, because she's just that like, and I want that. I want that spirituality, but it's like I looked so hard that I saw too much shit that like I can't unsee now, you know, and it's just, you know, I hope someday that maybe I can get spiritual because I feel like, I don't know why I feel like I have to have it, but
the way that you were raised was very similar to me, where your parents almost wanted everything to be perfect. Like, did your parents sweep your relapses and stuff under the, like, did they not tell everybody?
Even my
it was
ADHD diagnosis, it was don't tell your dad's family. Blah, blah, blah.
Everything. Now, I don't know what it was with maybe the baby boomer generation, but their way of parenting, everything had to be a secret. Like, shh, we're not telling Aunt so-and-so that, you know, you were in jail. Like, nobody needs to know that. Like, everything's a secret. So you're searching for perfection all the time.
Yeah. I remember when I got arrested and it was front page of the Belmont paper. And like, my mom was like PTA president. Like, she was,
I can see that hurting.
My mom's like, now I have to drive like so far to go grocery shopping because I don't want to, you know, it was very like, very about the image of the family. Like even now, my mom would fucking kill me if she knew that I was talking about how they can't retire because they spent all that money on treatment and stuff, you know? But it's like, Mom, that's a noble thing, you know? No one's saying that you're broke. You're broke because you spent all your money on me, you know? Like,
how do your parents feel about you being on social media, being so vocal about your recovery? Like my family, they still don't even know that I do any of this, talk any of this, because they wouldn't like it, to be honest with you.
Neither does mine.
They wouldn't like it.
So they know, but my mom is so not tech savvy that like she's like afraid, like she doesn't want any of that on her phone, you know, like she's like very like meh, you know, like I said something about like my Beyond the Rims podcast and I guess she like Googled it and like saw my name and that was like good enough for her to like see it. She didn't want to like see anything else. So they're okay with it just because they don't really know what I'm saying. They know that I put them on social media. Like they knew that I had done a little thing of them that I've shared on here before, you know, asking them questions and stuff. And they were fine with that. They're not really, because now I'm okay, you know,
right?
I'm okay. So if I was still like going through it, it would be not okay to them. But because I made it out and like they see me trying to help other people, my mom looks at it as a very godly thing, you know, and that's God using me as an, you know, how she fucking
as a tool. Yeah.
So
how did they react when you got back with your husband in the first place? Like, especially because you ended up here.
Completely excommunicated, was not talked to. My dad would still talk to me a little bit. My mom didn't talk to me for months and months and months. And my dad would still talk, but it was very short. It was bad.
I remember seeing your wedding video.
Yeah, no one can.
Like you seemed like you only had each other at that point. When you got married to your husband, it was just you and him against the world, right? There was no support from any outside family.
Yes.
Did that bring you closer?
Yeah, absolutely. It brought us closer because before it was us against the world in a very unhealthy way, in like the, like, you know, like destructive, like we're
The Bonnie
destroying
and Clyde
ourselves.
shit. The Bonnie
Yeah,
and Clyde
exactly.
shit. Yeah.
And now it was like us against the world. Like we're gonna show these motherfuckers that we're gonna fucking do it. You know?
And I feel
Yeah.
like you're closer to your mom, but like your dad was he the one that you went to whenever you really needed something, even if it was just to talk? Because you
Yeah,
you
because my
haven't talked a
mom's
lot
wild.
about like how he acted.
Yeah, my dad's mad chill. My mom is explosive. My
Yeah.
mom is like a little Mexican firecracker, and she's just, yeah, like she's just like. They're very opposite. Like even like when my parents, like if I'd be working somewhere, like I remember I was working on at the 99 when I was out on bail, right? Like serving. And my parents would come and have dinner there once a week. And like, that's how they would see me and check in, you know, on me and stuff. And when I'd leave, I'd hug them. And my dad would always slip me like an extra $20 because
Yep.
he didn't want my mom to see that. Cause my mom money, like, you know, she was like gift cards. Even when I needed stuff, then she started calling me in a pizza, or she started giving, you know, it was very no money, no money, no money. But my dad would always, you know, my
How
dad
long did it
always
take?
believed me even when I was nodding out in his face.
How long did it take for that relationship to like hit a somewhat stable spot to where they trusted you again?
It was about a year of my husband and I being, well, like there was a couple of different trusts and mistrusts. Like when I had finally stopped like going in and out of programs and had that 4 years in Dallas where I was drinking a lot, but wasn't, you know, using and was stable. That took a few years. Like it took like a few years for my parents to start trusting me again. And then this, with us being 2,000 miles away now, and my parents kind of seeing that, because also the other thing is when I was so reliant on them for money for everything and always having some excuse of why I needed money, and like I haven't asked my parent for money in years. So I think that like if anything I give them money, so it's like now them seeing that,
Roles
that's
reversed.
all they need to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, me, like the second if I was to ever ask for money though, it'd be off.
They would know
100%.
instantly. They literally would know instantly because you've maintained stability all this time
Yeah,
without asking. And that's a
yeah,
telltale sign right
yeah.
there.
I will say though, like on the phone, that's why I don't like talk to my mom on the phone, is because if I sound anything other than like super upbeat and happy, she will automatically think I'm headed for like that I'm using,
Right.
I'm about to use again. Like I can't ever tell her I'm anything but good, because if she thinks I'm anything but good, then I'm gonna go back. So
Right.
that's annoying.
How did you utilize medical marijuana as part of your journey? Was that always part of your journey?
Weed's always been like since seventh grade, like so that
I
seventh grade something
remember.
like, has always been. But I will say when I started using dope and stuff, like I stopped buying weed because who the fuck wants to spend money on
Right.
that? And then it wasn't until I moved back to Massachusetts from Texas when my husband was coming home, I started smoking. And I was like, man, like I miss this shit. Like I, you know, like this, like, why did I even do other drugs? Like this fucking does it for me. Like there was no need for me to do anything else. Like I could have just smoked weed and fucking been fine. But, and it really wasn't like, I kind of, for social media, I dressed it up as medical, like I am a medical cannabis patient, okay? And it does absolutely help me medicinally, 100%. But I am 100% more of a recreational, like stoner type weed smoker, okay?
Yeah.
And
Are
it's
you
taken me a long time to like feel comfortable to say that, because I felt like I always had to be like, oh, plant medicine, like, oh, and it is. I'm not taking that away from it because it does help me medicinally. But if I'm just being straight up real, I love being stoned. I love smoking weed.
Yeah, that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. It took me 5 years of being in recovery to pick up marijuana again. And when I did, I said, damn, I should have been using this the whole time, because
Yep.
it really did help me with certain things, anxiety. Like when my kids irritate me, that's my walk out of the house real quick and smoke. Like it keeps me chill.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
my husband doesn't smoke at all, but like if he sees, like he makes sure that I don't get low, because he knows that like that's all it takes, because I am very like impulsive, like the way that I would just leave and do. I am very like, I can switch. I think it's part of the ADHD. Like I can be totally fine. One little thing will go wrong and like I'm fucking batshit crazy, but I can literally take one hit from my bong and then I'm like, bitch, you're overreacting. Like it's fine. Like having that is such, like, I cannot tell you how much that has saved my life and probably saved my husband's too. You know, like it's one, having that buffer is so fucking important. And like, that's why I say, like, I do use it medicinally,
Right.
but I love being stoned. It's about learning to like be okay saying like, no, like I'm not sober. I'm not fucking, and I know like a lot of people, and this is like, there's kind of a, in 420 recovery, whatever the fuck you want to call it, there is very much people who just like talk about it from the medicinal view. And like, maybe that's their experience. Maybe they do just use it as a medicine. But
everyone's different.
Are you taking anything else for your ADHD or just using that?
I'm just using that because for a couple of reasons. A, because every time I take ADHD medicine, I always take more because it feels so fucking good to be able to get shit done. And then it just like it's like, oh my, like, because you guys don't like, okay, I have been like on social media, had my Etsy store for like 5 years now. Okay, 5 years. Don't even have 400 sales on my Etsy store. Like not like, haven't really done much with social media, not consistent because like I can't be, you know, like I can't, like there's this week I have been trying to make some TikToks and I cannot fucking make them. I don't know why,
you struggle,
but I cannot fucking make them. And like, I'll go through these times where like I'm pumping them out. And then I go through other times where I can't do shit. And like, I'm like that with my laundry. I'm looking at a pile of laundry. Like there's so much shit that I can't, when I take that fucking medicine, bro, I am super woman. The person that I strive and want to be when I set my goals down for like when I'm trying to get my stuff together, that medicine makes me that person. But the problem is that I cannot take it responsibly. And then the other side of that is that I don't want to, A, I don't have insurance right now, but then B, like going and talking to a doctor about that is just so much stigma when you have the history. It's like, I haven't been on it in so many years. Like I feel like I would make myself look guilty. Like
you're seeking, like you're drug seeking.
Like, and I'm not
That's
even
how
going, I won't
feel.
even do it. I won't
agree.
even do it.
Do you go to therapy or anything? Or?
Not anymore. When my husband first came home, we were both in therapy separately, and that saved us too.
That's what I was wondering, like whenever you were in that point where you were bouncing all over the place, what were the things that worked and what just didn't at all?
Well, when I was bouncing all over the place, I was only given 12-step. Like I didn't have any other options. So it was 12-step. And that's the thing, like everything I was going through was actual mental health shit or ADHD shit. And that was just being like, no, like you just need to work the steps. Like, no. And like the type of fundamentalist groups I was in, getting outside help was med seeking. What do you want to go talk to a doctor for? What do you want? You know what I mean? Like this is like, these fundamentalist groups are so different than like regular 12-step groups, you know, like they are just super, super hardcore. And, you know, they just make you think that you can't. I mean, even beer battered fish, they tell you to stay away from. Like, it's just, you feel like you can't get outside help. And so when I finally got the outside help, it was so many years. And the thing is that like, they do kind of brainwash you to think that like I remember going to therapy like years ago and like not being honest with the therapist because I was like out on bail and we were trying to like, it was like therapy for court, you know? So
right.
No, I wasn't honest with the therapist. No, I wasn't telling him that like I just got high before I got here. No. But then that gets into your head with the AA stuff. They're like, think about therapy. Have you tried therapy? Were you honest with your therapist? Well, no, I wasn't honest with me. You know what I mean? It's like all these little things that they like suck you in. And then you're like, this is me, bro. They're talking about me. You know what I mean? You get all hyped up and excited because you're like, this is the fucking solution. Like they're talking all about me. Like everything they're saying, like, that's me, that's me. And then like you take a step back and you're like, is it me though? Am I just a selfish, self-centered piece of shit? Like, is that really who I am? And then like you start to see, well, there are pieces of me that like acted that way, but that's not who I am at my core. And it just, the messaging gets really confusing because you can identify with so much of it that then you buy into the whole fucking thing, you know?
I think part of the issue is because I ran multiple meetings, went to all types of different AA, NA, whatever. Now, NA, even whenever I chaired that, I wasn't a big fan. I just never found the right groups of people coming in. But one of my AA groups was a bunch of old dudes that were all super freaking cool. It didn't matter what was going on. As long as you were trying to stay sober, you were good. And I feel like part of the problem is almost some of the people that came in later, they lost sight of what it was all about. And that's where the disconnect is, because a lot of the older people I've met have actually been really cool, even with Matt or whatever. It's the like 30 or 40-year-olds. Those are the ones that are like, nah, this isn't right.
Well, I think some of it comes from that like competitive, like who has the biggest spiritual, dick. It's like you
Right.
start, like it is though. It's like he's like, oh, how many sponsors do you? Oh, you're opening up a sober house. Oh, like, well, you know what I mean? Like
It's like ego
Yeah.
steps back.
which is supposed to
into it.
be
Ego,
like everything
right.
that like the steps are supposed to crush, but everything in those rooms, when you take into account the
Ego-driven.
sober livings and the treatment and like all of that stuff, it strokes the ego, bro, like big time.
And I even noticed whenever I first started doing this, like, I don't know why I did it, but I felt like I needed to keep track of like how many people I helped and stuff like that. And I would mention it a couple of times. And I don't know if that was part of it or I was just proud that I was helping people, but I'm sure that was a little bit, because whenever I first started this, even in the MAT groups, I didn't learn anything new. It was everything I had from AA and NA. And I felt like that was a really toxic place to be, just in general, but I felt like I knew a lot.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like when I first started sharing on the internet, like I thought I was like a recovery addiction, because I didn't even use the word substance use disorder. I thought I was like a recovery addiction specialist. Do you know what I mean? Like I thought I knew everything. And then when I started sharing about like, the rooms, because even when I first started talking about the rooms not being, I still didn't know what the hell I was saying. Like I just knew that I wanted other people to know that if the rooms don't work for you, that's okay. But I didn't know that like majority of people don't find it in the rooms. I thought it was just a small group of us. Then I find out there's more of us. Then I find out there's actual literature and books and like other shit. And then you start and you're like, I've been duped. We've all been duped. You know what I mean? Like everything that we think we know about recovery isn't even real. Like everything just comes from, and like everything, money. You know what I mean? Like everything goes back to money. And it's such a slap in the face. And then now, like, I hate when people ask me what to do because I don't know. It was so easy when I used to be able to say, go to detox, go to treatment, go to meetings. That was so easy. Now I don't know, because I don't know what it's going to take for you. Like me,
right? Everyone,
certain path, Yeah,
everyone recovers differently,
Yeah.
and it's like what works for you might not work for me. What Kyle did might not work for you, vice versa.
Yeah, and it's scary because so many people are given this one pathway and then they die trying to make it this one pathway. Like we need to start saying that, like, it's okay to say you don't know what's going to help someone. That's okay. That's a lot more responsible than sending someone down a pathway could potentially kill them. Like I think that I don't care. Like the steps in those rooms are so detrimental for so many people, especially people with other mental health problems, because those other mental health problems get tangled up in a bunch of people that don't know anything other than they like to do drugs. And all of a sudden they become these experts because they worked these 12 steps and because, they fucking smoked crack in 1989. It's like, the drugs that these people are dealing, I don't even know about them. I don't know about xylazine. I've never done xylazine.
Right.
Stuff has changed. Everything has changed, and the amount of information that we know about this stuff has drastically changed. So why are we taking this method that we know, like an allergy? We know we don't have an allergy. We know that once we put it in our body, that it doesn't set off this phenomenon of craving, and all of a sudden I have no power, no control over it. How messed up is that to tell people? You know what I mean? Now we're telling people that it could set off this phenomenon of craving and that they're not going to be able to stop until something external stops them. That doesn't even make sense, And I bought into that shit for years.
Now, what about your husband? What when he got out, how was he staying sober? Matt?
Now he takes Suboxone. He doesn't smoke weed or anything. He doesn't like it. But he's never been a meeting person, never been a treatment person. Like he's just work. You know what I mean? Like work is his recovery
outlet.
What's his difference between the first time he was on subs and this time? Is it like you guys being stable and you also not using?
Yeah, for sure. Because that's the good and bad thing about us is that if I was to pick up today and start using, he would use with me, and vice versa. Just because it would be a you're not going without me type shit, you know, and like that's super unhealthy. I know that's not healthy, but
I've been there.
Yeah, but like we're not gonna do that to each other anymore. You know, like we're done. You know, like we tried it a bunch of times when he came home. We wanted it to work, but it just wasn't doing the same thing for us. And for so long, when it wasn't working for me anymore, I thought he was like the missing piece. It's like I just need him to come home. It'll all be the same again, but it wasn't. You know, and we kept trying until, you know, his probation officer got a second dirty UA and was like, you know, you have to do all this shit and your next one you're going back. And we were like, all right, like we're done. Like we're not gonna do it anymore. And we haven't. It'll be 6 years next month. I don't know the date, but it was sometime in January. It'll be 6 years next month.
That's one thing too that I've never experienced that, because everyone that I was always with while I was using was sober, or like my ex-wife, she drank all the time and stuff, and we would drink together sometimes, and that wasn't the best place. But whenever it actually came to doing the dope, it was all me. And I know the relationships can get kind of bad because it is kind of one person depends on the other, but being alone sucks ass sometimes. You're just hiding it all. I wanted to ask too, what do you have that you're trying to do with your content? I know you said like you're kind of having trouble focusing on it and stuff, but what was your ultimate goal once you started making content with actually helping people?
So to be 100% honest with you, when I first like came online, right? Like outside of just like a family, you know, Facebook profile. It was because my job was switching. My husband was just just been out of prison, like not even a year, was still making really shitty money. And we needed more money. He can draw. I had found a couple things that he had drew in prison. I was like, I'm going to stick these on a t-shirt, try to sell them. But then I got so distracted once I started to see, like, I didn't know these online communities like existed. Like, I didn't know social media was, you know, when all this shit came out, I was in programs and shit, you know, like I didn't really know. And so I was like, and I got so distracted by like the cannabis community. And then I was okay, like, I want to focus on cannabis, you know, like, cause you know, stoner girl. So, you know, I was like, cannabis is going to be my shit. And then I like started to talk a little bit about my past. And that's when, but I didn't consider myself in recovery because I was using cannabis. You know, I had this 12-step mentality. Yep. Yeah. And then people from like the cannabis community, like, what are you talking about? Like, that is recovery. And then like, I started to find more people that had a past and used cannabis. And then I started looking at like the recovery. And then once I found TikTok and I was like, oh my God, like there's people taking Suboxone on TikTok, bro. Like,
like there's a whole world that you had no idea even existed. I thought TikTok was for recipes. Like,
yeah, I'm like,
I had no idea either.
Wait, people get a whole box of take homes on methadone. Like everyone I know on methadone always had to go every day. And like, this is how it does help with the stigma, because there are people who are able to take it and who are able to earn a whole month of take homes. I never heard of it, you know, because I was taking people to the clinic and then going to meet the dope man afterwards. So, you know, again, our experience, always seeing things through our experience is so bad because we have that stigma automatically. You know, for me, I thought that methadone was just for people who weren't serious, honestly. Before TikTok, I really had a whole lot of stigma against methadone. I'm like, why wouldn't they just take Suboxone? They're trying to get high. Why would you take methadone? Anyone that I knew on methadone was always fucked up, you know? So I had and then people that like are like, I don't see her as much anymore, but Amanda, Beauty and Harm Reduction. I was like, this chick is super smart. Like, she completely changed it for me because I'm like, she's so smart. She's so together. She doesn't look high to me. Then I saw like Jess, you know, like she doesn't look high to me. Like, then I started to see more and more people and I'm like, all right, well, that's another one of those stigma things you had going on. And then that's when I started to just get more comfortable sharing my story. But my whole thing has been me learning. Like, this has not been, I'm not one of those people who comes to TikTok and was like, you know, I know shit and I'm going to tell you shit. I've come to TikTok and learned a whole bunch of shit, and now I'm telling people about it because my mind has changed so much.
You see the
Yeah.
growth looking back in yourself.
Oh
And
yeah,
that's
like
a beautiful thing.
some of my old content is so embarrassing. Like my
It's
first
funny to
season
look
of
back.
Beyond the Rooms is awful. Awful. It's like all like I'm like talking about the disease and like all the stuff that's coming to get you, and I'm like, oh my God. Like it's just, but you know, I'm glad that I have the growth on display.
Right.
You know, I'm glad people can see that you can have these really crazy ideas and they can change, you know. And I think it helps to let other people who are sharing their story and are just getting completely berated and talking down to and, you know, told that they're junk bags and all this stuff, and to see that you are changing people's opinions, because mine's completely changed on methadone. You know, like there's
Right.
so many things that I think, so I mean, harm reduction is my shit. I used to be insulted when people would say me using cannabis was harm reduction. Like I'm like, no, like do not put me in the harm reduction category. Like don't want to be there. Like this is recovery, you know?
Now you go and set up Narcan spots at dispensaries, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes. I
and I
started
love
doing that
that.
in August.
I love that. I think that that's an excellent idea because, you know, I think it's great because the people that are going in there, you never know what's going on. Like,
So my whole thing with my outreach, because I started like I'm starting this program like in restaurants and stuff too, because like the rest people who work in restaurants,
the
like it's like
restaurant business,
yeah,
yes.
and like I work in
Kyle
a
and I
restaurant,
know,
so
right?
yeah.
We've been there.
So with a
Smart.
lot of my outreach, I'm not trying to target like Mass Ave. You know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to target people who are like deep in the trenches. I'm trying to
Right.
target the recreational user. I'm trying to, like, I know how my mom is, you know, I'm trying to like let these parents know, you know, not just parent, but you know, what I mean? I'm trying to like let people know that like it does affect you, sweetheart. You know, and even if it's not, you know, this person who's completely, you know, addicted to a substance, you know, people who use drugs recreationally. Sorry, but you fucking do. You know, so
Somebody
it's like,
said you're filling in the gaps, and I think that was well
Yeah.
said. You're filling in the
yeah.
gaps, like where it's needed, but people don't recognize.
Yeah, because I've been there, you know what I mean? Like, and I always think
Right.
of it's just recently that I've stopped. It's thanks to harm reduction that I've stopped thinking it like not everybody who uses drugs has a problem, you know? Like, there's plenty of people who use drugs who don't have a problem. Like, and then if you just put all the services in the areas like, you know, where everyone's living in tents, people aren't going to go and access those services there. They're not going to want to be considered a part of that category, you know? So you're putting all the services in areas where recreational users don't even want to be associated with that. So they're not going to go there, you know? And a lot
Right.
of people that aren't making it, they're not the people who are using it every day. You know, the people that need to test their drugs for fentanyl aren't the people who are going and buying fentanyl. You know, like they know that that's what they're going to buy. You know, they need some xylazine test strips, but you know, it's people that are buying coke that need to test that.
So, do you get access to fentanyl test strips because in the state of Massachusetts, it's considered paraphernalia?
Yeah.
So, how do you get around that? Like, I've tried to order them online. It will not let me order them to my house.
I just get them from the state. Like I just like I had to get the Narcan. I had to like fill out this stuff. It's called like I can tell you more
Yeah.
about it.
I'm just curious because, and so like if you were to hand that out, can you get in trouble because that's paraphernalia? That's where I'm confused.
I hope not.
Because when you look it
I'm
up,
getting a mail to me
mean,
from the Department of Public Health through Massachusetts. So
Because she's become authorized user of it, though. You know what I mean? Because just like the government building or a MAC clinic or something can have them.
Yeah.
Not in Massachusetts.
So
I
somebody,
can't
no, wait,
believe they're
somebody in the
considered
comments is saying you
paraphernalia
get it from
here.
Amazon. No, listen, I'm dead serious. I cannot order test strips from Amazon. I've tried multiple times. It says will not ship to that address. Like even so in the state of Massachusetts, if you look it up, it is considered paraphernalia.
Right. So a lot of
Man,
states are
I'm
legal like
very-
that, but your MAC clinic can't get them either.
My MAC clinic can get them, but I can't get them.
So that's what I'm talking about. She's become an authorized user, just like a MAC clinic, because you filled out all the
Okay.
paperwork. Because otherwise,
That's probably the loophole.
Maybe.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's super illegal.
Yeah, it's called
Okay.
like a
Yeah.
CPN, like community, no, CNP, like community naloxone provider. But there was a
Cool.
website that I was ordering them from, like through Massachusetts before I even filled that paperwork out. And it just
Okay.
like, yeah.
That's
So
weird.
not the Narcan. The Narcan is like very, but like you can get test strips and face masks and like I'll send you the website.
Okay,
You can get
that's
it
cool. Yeah.
directly to your house for free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's cool because it's like, so many people need stuff like that. And now I know they have the xylazine test strips out, which is
Yeah.
amazing. That's a new thing. And I think that hopefully we move in the right direction because xylazine, nitazine, all these things are infiltrating our supply right now.
Yeah,
It's
that's
starting to
the
get
next
tough.
thing that I'm trying to work on because, like, my husband, I think I've told you this before, but he's lost 5 siblings, through an overdose.
Wow.
And so my mother-in-law, she does, I guess it's just the group that she ended up getting hooked up with, but they happen to do like a lot of stuff like in New Jersey. But she's like
Hmm.
in this mom group, and you know how like what is it called? Like when you're just misinformed, like you just this, they're like, I hate fentanyl type people, right? So what I want to do is try to like through her is like try to like I don't even know, but like kind of like makes I don't know if it would be a program or what it would be called, but just kind of like because we want moms on our side and moms would be good for advocacy, absolutely. But I think
Absolutely.
they're saying it from the wrong end. Like we need to let them know, like, look, once we got rid of the OCs, the fentanyl came around. Now we're getting the xylazine. Shit didn't get better with this, like the anti-big pharma, like all that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
so it's not getting better. And just like give these moms like some actual education because they're advocating, they're out there, they're out at the state house, but they're just saying the wrong. I don't want to sound like I'm an asshole, like they're saying the wrong shit because they're not saying what I think they should. But you know what I mean? Like the advocacy part is not coming from the right place. Like the changes that need to happen is not what they're trying to make happen.
I did want to ask one more thing. What are your thoughts on abstinence and just TikTok has kind of made it a weird place whenever you're talking about abstinence because there are a lot of people that are completely against it. Like they will fight you to not be abstinent. And I disagree with that because I am abstinent,
Yeah.
but I understand the concern.
Here's the thing. Everybody's different, right?
Right.
Some people have to be abstinent. Whether it's because they just believe they have to be, what you believe will come true. That's what I think. Not in everything. Like obviously if I had the flu, I can't think myself out of the flu. I'm not one of those people who thinks you can think everything. Yeah, I'm not one of those. But I do believe if you constantly tell yourself something, that's what happened to me when I was, in and out all the time. There are some people that for whatever reason, whether it's truly they have to be abstinent, like they truly just can't use substances. There are people like that. There are people that just can't use substances. There are people that don't want to use substances. What if they just don't fucking want to? Like there's people who just don't want to, right? I love substances. I love getting fucked up. So for me, I'm going to choose my weed because that's a safe option for me, right? Not everybody has that luxury. Not everybody can just smoke weed and be chill with that and be cool with that. And I get that, and I think it's wrong to tell people like abstinence is not for me, but I think it has an important spot for a lot of people. A lot of people need to be abstinent, for whatever reason, even if it's just because they fucking want to. If they just want to be abstinent, why are you going to dog them for being abstinent? But I think what's happened is we've gotten so much pushback from the abstinence only people that now it's just coming too hard. It's getting tangled, and that's not how it should be.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I like that. That's all we've got.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank you
you.
guys so much.